Now I'm going to talk about Trinity under theology proper. Trinity. Trinity is a fundamental doctrine to Christian faith, and this doctrine is plainly taught in the Bible without mentioning the word Trinity itself. The word Trinity can be defined as triunity or three in oneness. The proper definition of Trinity goes like this. The Trinity is composed of three united persons without separate existence, so completely united as to form one God. The divine nature subsists in three distinctions: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That is the brief and right definition of Trinity. Now, let us see some of the misinterpretations of Trinity. First one is Tritheism. Tritheism. The Tritheism I have written here. Tritheism. Tritheism. In early church history, some men such as John Asconatus and John Philoponus, I have written their names here. I don't know whether you can see it or not. John Asconatus and John Philoponus, I have written there. These people started to teach that there are three who are gods, but they are related in loose associations, and their association is compared to that of Peter, James, and John as disciples. Peter, James, and John, all of them were disciples, but they were separate individuals with a separate existence. In the same manner, this teaching says, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit are three persons with three existences. That is what it teaches. Now the next misinterpretation is Sabellianism, which was started by Sabellius. And then this teaching teaches that God is one, but He manifests in different modes as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are nothing but different ways or different modes of revelation or manifestation only. They are not different persons. That means there are no three persons, only one, but only manifestation is found as three. That's what this teaching says. And then third one is Arianism. Arianism is also I have written here. Sabellianism, Arianism. Arianism is also started by Arius, saying Son was subordinate to the Father. And he says, Son was begotten of the Father. There is only one God who is uncreated, that is Father. So here, this teaching denies the deity of Christ. And this teaching was contained in the Church Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. So this teaching denies the deity of Christ. Now, let us look at some of the biblical teachings here. In Genesis 1:26, we see the teaching of Trinity here. When God says, let us make man in our image. Here, the usage of us and our are best understood as plural of God's presence in Himself. Let us make man in our image. This means God is speaking to Himself as three persons within Himself, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That is the right understanding and right teaching of this passage. There may be so many interpretations on this, some suggestions on this. Even some people say, this is God talking to angels, saying, let us make man. And that is also not supported by any evidence, because angels did not participate, as we all know, in the creation. So it is God speaking to Himself as triune God, three within Himself. Second, let us see in the New Testament also, Father is called God. We find that in 1 Corinthians 8:6, by saying, there is one God, the Father. And the second, Son is called God. Hebrews 1:8-10, where it says, but of the Son, He says, your throne, O God. Here, Son is also called God. And then third one, Holy Spirit is God. Acts 5:3-4, where it says, lying to the Holy Spirit is lying to God, which means Holy Spirit is God. And then fourth one covers the previous three, where it says, God is one. Deuteronomy 6:4. Father is God, Son is God, the Holy Spirit is God. And Deuteronomy 6:4 says, God is one. Therefore, these passages affirm the doctrine of Trinity. These passages affirm the doctrine of Trinity. There are some events where we find the teaching of Trinity in the events themselves. First event here, in the act of making disciples, Jesus commanded to baptize a person in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Here also we find the doctrine of Trinity. We find that in Matthew 28, verse 18. Second event we find here is in Mary's conception, the Holy Spirit came upon her. Power of God overshadowed her, and the child was called Son of God. So here also, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, three persons involved in this. We find that in Luke 1:35. And then third event is in the baptism of Jesus. Father spoke from heaven. The Son was being baptized, and the Holy Spirit came like a dove on Jesus, which means three persons acted simultaneously during the baptism of Jesus. So all these things teach us and affirm that Trinity is clearly taught in the Bible, and God is three in one. That's how we understand